Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be diving into the world of one of the greatest jazz guitar players, if not the greatest jazz guitar player of all time, Wes Montgomery. In this lesson we'll be focusing on the changes to his classic tune, D Natural Blues, breaking down the chords for you and the harmony. For me, being able to comp a jazz blues and everything that entails is just one of the essential foundations of jazz rhythm guitar. Firstly, a massive thank you to my patrons for voting for this tune as the standard of the month. In the description you'll find links to both my Patreon page as well as a link to the chord chart and the shapes and harmonic analysis from today's lesson. So D Natural Blues is in your regular 12-bar format, but the irregular thing about this tune is the fact it's in the key of D. That's quite an unusual key to play a jazz blues. You know, most jazz blueses are in B flat, maybe A flat, F, you know. D it's unusual. But going back to that form, it's just your regular 12 bar and has to turn around in the last 2 bars. Now to play the basic changes of this song, you don't need many chord shapes, just the following: D7 for the A string, and that's root, major third, flat 7. G7 off the E string, root, flat 7, major third. Move the upper tone for A7. Root, flat 7, major third. Lastly, E minor 7 off the A string, root, minor 7, minor third. You could obviously use other voicings. I put them there just to keep things simple where I think it's kind of got the easiest transitions, but use whatever voicings you prefer, whether you prefer 4/note or in different places. Now to put those in order, we can get the basic changes of this song. And what I mean by basic changes is that in reality when people comp a blues, there's so many different variations, common chord moves, substitutions and ways to add tension and release and a sense of movement, that whilst we might have some basic changes like I'm about to show you, in reality a pianist, a bass player, us guitar players and soloists are going to imply and put in lots of additional chords, but I always think it's important to start with the basic foundation. Let me play that in time for you. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. On a D7. And those are pretty standard basic changes for a jazz blues that you could roll out to other keys. But see that as the foundation, something you can embellish. First learn to get to grips with the sound of that, obviously the physical nature of changing between the chords, and then see it as something you can develop. Now if you wanted to play this with someone else in the style that Wes plays the melody, there are some stops on the chords on the head. So let me break those down for you. So the stops on the changes for the head, they come in on the and of 3. So if you look at that D7 there, you go 1, 2, 3 and then rest on 4. So 1, 2, 3 and. Then in bar 2, G7 comes in again on the and of 3. 1, 2, 3 and. So put that together so far. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3 and. So the last one differs at the end of that first line. You hold it. It's on the and of 3 again, but you go 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2. Then you go into G7. Put that all together if I did the first 5 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. It's hard for me to do it with the head and the stabs at the same time. They're not really meant to be played together necessarily, but I'll try and do it. I probably won't get this in time, but just to illustrate what I mean by how these stabs, these stops, punctuate the head. Sort of like that, but I could definitely play that better without having to do the stops. So onto the harmonic analysis, not too many chords here, so pretty straightforward. As the title of the song suggests, we are in the key of D. What does that mean? Key of D means the following: chord 1, D, chord 2, E minor, chord 3, F sharp minor 7, chord 4, G, chord 5, A, chord 6, the relative minor, B minor, and chord 7, C sharp diminished. In a jazz context, it's normal to turn those into seventh chords, so what I put on the screen now, which is D major 7, E minor 7, F sharp minor 7, G major 7, A dominant 7th, B minor 7, C sharp minor 7 flat 5, back to D major 7. Cross-reference that with our chart, and we've got a D chord, albeit D7. We've got E minor 7, chord 2. We've got a G, albeit as a G7, not G major 7, and we've got A7, chord 5. So we start out on chord 1 as a dominant. That's our home chord, the tonic chord we're gonna resolve back to and work our way back to anytime we move away from there. We then go to chord 4, do what's called the quick change, where you have chord 4 in bar 2 of a jazz blues, and then back to chord 1 for 2 beats. So just that opening line, what you want to hear there is the D7 as home and that G7 as a little movement away. It's a subdominant chord. We're moving away from that home sound, and then we're back. Second line, we hit chord 4 again, but chord 4, in its voice as a dominant, back to chord 1. Then we get the classic jazz move, 2, 5, 1. E minor 7 as our 2, A7, the true dominant, the 5 chord in this key, leading us back to 1 as a dominant, and we've got a turn around here, 2 beats on each chord. So chord 1, chord 4, back home to chord 1, punctuate the form with chord 5. This sets us up to go back to the beginning, to do it all again, round and round, or just to finish on a D7 or a dominant bass D chord. So just something to note there. Obviously, in the kind of harmonic analysis, there's only one dominant chord, A7, that's chord 5 in this key, but in a jazz blues you could turn any of those chords into dominants if you wanted to. And here we've got just the classic thing of chords 1, 4 and 5 being voiced as dominants. Sometimes you will encounter jazz blues where you get a plain major chord, sometimes even a major 7 chord, particularly in some of the kind of Charlie Parker blues. So don't always assume it'll be dominants, but this is pretty typical. And like I kept using the word home, I'm like hearing this as home, away, home, away, home, and then the E minor 7 sets up another journey back to home. It's always about that tension and resolution of wanting to get back to the 1 chord. Now, whilst I think it's important to be able to place chords, understand the harmony of a song, so that you can recognise parallel cases in future when you play other songs, it's so important that beyond the theory of that you really do internalise the sound of the chords, that going from 1 to 4 or the 2 to the 5 later on in the song, it doesn't just mean those academic terms. It means something to you in terms of the sound. Like, you can anticipate what the 4 chord's going to sound like before you go to it, and what it's like to resolve back to the tonic 1 chord. Now, you don't only want to get used to the sound of the basic changes, you want to start to appreciate the typical variations that people stick in when they play a jazz blues. Put a group of jazz musicians together, someone says let's play a blues in D, B flat, whatever key, then it's a case of, well, what changes are we going to use? But that really just kind of happens quite organically, and people listen to each other and follow one another with the typical variations that people put in. And just to illustrate that, I've played you the basic changes today. Here's an example of how I might just in the moment stick in a few variations to the basic changes. That's a richer harmony, there's greater sense of movement to certain chords, like it's drawing you to another chord, and there's more moments of tension and release. Now, over on Patreon this month on the accompanist tier, the comping study gives you 3 choruses where I go through classic variations to the jazz blues. On the soloist tier this month, there is a full breakdown of Wes's octave technique, how you go about doing it correctly, and how you can practice it, as well as my transcription of his melody. Now, if you've enjoyed today's lesson, please leave a comment. It really does make a difference. Special thank you to everyone that supports me over on Patreon. As I said, there's tons over there around this song, so if you'd like to dive deeper on this one with me, then please check out the link in the description. And jazz guitar lessons every Wednesday with myself, Andy. Until next time, you take care.